Hello and welcome to Hot Topic. I'm Hugh Riches. With me today are two regular parliamentary correspondents together for once. Austin Mitchell, Labour MP for Great Grimsby, and Martin Vickers, Conservative MP for Cleethorpes and Immingham. I should point out there's no bias here. If the constituencies of S3 TV's broadcast area had returned other parties to Parliament, they too would be represented. But until next year at least, I'm with Austin Mitchell and Martin Vickers. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. First matter on the agenda, we haven't seen each other since the budget. Perhaps the biggest news from the budget is that pensioners will now be able to control their whole pension savings rather than having to buy an annuity. It was a Conservative budget, Martin Vickers. Why? What's good?
Well, it's been an excellent budget all round, not just the pensions issue, but more money in people's pockets through the increased allowances, better allowances for businesses and so on. So it's been good all round, but specifically the pensions. The only criticism that's been made of the fact is that some pensioners might go out and blow the whole of their pension pot. Well, my experience is that that is not the case. They're the people who have saved and been prudent all their lives. The last thing they're going to do is go and blow it.
Austin Mitchell, the Labour side has opposed
well, it was a good
this,
budget. It wasn't
change.
bad, but it would have been better in 2010 to stimulate the economy and get a bit of expansion going. So it's a good budget, but far too late. Only 4 years late, but then the Tories are catching up. As to people being allowed to splurge their pension pots, the Minister said that if people want to go out and buy a Lamborghini with their pension pots, well, that's up to them. I think that's crazy. I mean, they provided 25 million to advise them on what to do with the money from the pension, but a lot of people are going to make irresponsible decisions, and it's going to be a blow for annuities. If the annuity system is wrong, people have got to buy an annuity to provide them with a continuous income. If that's wrong, well, fix it. But I think it's too far to let them blow everything. It will undermine the whole pension system, and that will mean more spending on pensions and social security later on.
But if they want to go and blow it irresponsibly, it's their money. They've earned it. They've been saving up for it.
Yes,
all
they
their lives. Why must they be told what to do with something they've created?
They've had a tax allowance for doing so, and it undermines the long-term prospects if they spend it all initially. Whatever it's on, whether it's on paying debts or a luxury. Most people don't have a very big pension pot, so it's difficult to say that we're setting people free as we were to buy council houses.
There'll always be someone who blows it, and there'll be a front page story and a horror story. But the reality is, as I said, most people who have prepared themselves for their old age will act very responsibly.
What about the benefits cap as well? That was an element of the budget which has caused some division in the House of Commons, although I think the Labour Party is supporting that policy as well. Austin, which way did you vote?
Well, the Labour Party did support the benefits cap. I didn't. I abstained. I would have voted against it, but there wasn't time to tell the whips how objectionable it was, so I didn't bother. And I think it's objectionable because the welfare spending depends on the state of the economy. If the economy is bad, you've got to spend more on welfare. If it's good, then you spend less. I hope that Labour's plans to expand and generate employment and provide a higher minimum wage and a better living wage, that these will obviate the need for a lot of benefit spending. But until that's proven, I don't want to fix a cap on it.
I mean, Austin's always had a sort of honourable position on this and argued the same as we're hearing from him now. But the Labour Party have actually just caught up with public opinion. The reality is that this has had widespread support when the coalition introduced it a year or two ago. And the Labour Party have been forced into a corner where they've actually had to face economic realism.
But this is about scroungers, really. It's an attempt to capitalise on the scrounger image. Most of the welfare spending goes on pensions and supporting the old and the geriatric, like me.
How can you capitalise on a scrounger?
Well, because people got to say all the money on welfare has been wasted because a lot of people living at home, living the life of Riley on benefits, and that's just not true. That's only a very small proportion of welfare spending.
Is this the image that George Osborne wanted to present?
What I'm sure George Osborne wanted to present is a responsible management of the economy, and the reality is that I mean, Austin said the budget's 4 years too late. whichever government had come into power at the height of the economic crisis in 2010 would have taken very similar action to what George Osborne has taken. And it's been proven to be correct. All this talk of, from Ed Ball's move to Plan B and so on is now withered away.
But if
well, no, that's not true, Martin. I mean, it was overkill. There's such about too many cuts and too big a reduction in the debt. They haven't actually reduced the debt effectively at all, or reduced the deficit. It's still almost as large as it was when you came in.
Well, the deficit has been reduced, but of course you don't start eliminating the debt until you eliminate the deficit altogether.
To pay off debt, you've got to expand the economy.
Which
when
is
the
happening.
economy was expanding, and when we came in from 97, for the next 3 years we paid off an enormous amount of debt. You can only pay off debt if the economy is growing. As it was contracting because you damaged it with the cuts.
One further thing about the budget, the Grant Shapps advertisement about beer and bingo. There were cuts in taxation for beer and bingo. Two of my favourite things. But does this show that Grant Shapps has a slightly stereotypical view of the great British working people?
Well, it was a daft advert. It should never have seen the light of day. In this age when with tweets and all this sort of thing and putting daft adverts on the internet, it's not my idea of politics. I prefer more traditional style where you can actually argue cases. It was a daft thing and it will soon be forgotten.
We agree on that. No argument. We agree.
Neither of you play bingo?
Yeah, I've been down to the promenade and played it in my younger days.
I play bingo very occasionally, but I'm incompetent at calling it because all my jokes are very old, and I'm so slow calling the bingo. They want to get on and they want to, win the prizes, and I'm slowing the whole thing
as the Prime Minister said in the House the other day, it's the closest they're going to get to number 10.
Well, nice joke. Okay, but it maybe is indicative of something in the high ends of the Conservative Party. Michael Gove the other day was saying that there are too many old Etonians, Martin. Is it some sort of toffs club in the cabinets and in campaign headquarters?
That's a load of nonsense. There are a lot of people on the Conservative benches who, like me, have been brought up an ordinary existence. I spent the first 5 years of my life in a rented house in Cleethorpes. My parents then thought they'd won the pools when they got a council house in Henridge Road. So there's plenty like us.
Austin, would you say there are too many Etonians in Parliament?
Well, I think there are, but I think the real problem is that the Labour Party is less of a workers' party. We've got fewer workers, and the Toffs Party has fewer Toffs and more garagistes and arrivistes.
And more working class like me.
But the real problem with politics these days is that too many of the people coming in are professional politicians. They've come in through working in Parliament or working for a trade union or the political side of a business rather than the business side of it. And they have a kind of gilded path to power, and they don't really know the state of the people or what people think. There is little contact with the people, direct contact, and I think that's a real weakness. We need to know what the people think. We need to stay in constant touch with the people. We are there to represent them, and if we are playing our own game.
Austin's absolutely right on this. Both parties are in some ways not representative, but it's also true that on the Tory benches there are lots now with a working class background like my own, and that's been a great advantage to what, as Austin says, in order to represent. We are a working class community here.
Austin, you're the chattering classes that have supplied members of Parliament, university lecturers and journalists. You've been both of them before.
Well, that's true. I mean, I hope I stay in touch with the people, and being an MP, you've got to do that. But I mean, touche on that. I have to admit it.
Of the three of us, I'm the only worker.
You are the only one. Thank you,
Get
Martin.
back to the lathe.
At that point, we're going to have to stop for a break. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Please join us again with Austin Mitchell and Martin Vickers after this short break. Putting faith in these wind farms, but the independent member of the European Parliament for Yorkshire and Humberside, Godfrey Bloom, suggests that wind power has no future. They're closing it down in Germany, he says.
Well, as long as Geoffrey Bloom is producing it, wind power has a big future. but
Welcome back to Hot Topic. I'm talking to Austin Mitchell MP and Martin Vickers. Gentlemen, good news on Humberside recently that Siemens and ABP have come to a deal to move the manufacture of wind farm blades onto the north bank of the Humber. How will this affect your constituents? Austin Mitchell.
Well, it will affect us very seriously. I mean, ABP has already got a finalised agreement now with Siemens to manufacture on 2 sites over in ABP facilities and docks in Hull. One is to do the blades and the other is to do the machinery and the wind turbines. We need that kind of development on the South Bank, and Able is trying to develop a big site on the South Bank where they'll both manufacture wind turbines and do the engineering work and the supplies and all that, and ship them from a jetty. The problem is the size and length of that jetty, because ABP claims that it wants about 20% of the jetty, something like that, for its purposes, to build a new jetty for them, which they say will provide 100 jobs or so, whereas Able says it can't spare any of the land for its jetty and from its jetty. That means the two are deadlocked, and as long as that deadlock is going on, we aren't getting any jobs in Humberside.
Yeah.
Well, Martin, this touches your constituency.
Well, indeed, it's in my constituency, and Austin and I and the other 2 South Bank MPs have been working on trying to sort of broker some compromise between the 2 parties now. It now has to go through a special parliamentary procedure. I'm hopeful that a compromise can be reached, because there is a window of opportunity now for the renewable sector. Siemens is the magnet that we all needed, but we've got to take that opportunity now, otherwise the time will pass.
There has to be a compromise.
Yeah,
the problem is this select committee procedure is a bit unpredictable. I used it once to try and hold up Peaks Parkway, and it was horrendous because it could go on forever. And we had actually to rush in and choke it off after 2 days of hearings. This could go on for months if we let it.
What's the politics of this? Because the conflict is between, on the South Bank, between Able and ABC. Because of the ABC involvement in the North Bank, the ABC seem to be the heroes of the peace at the moment. So does that give them an advantage in the conflict on the South Bank?
Well, the North Bank development will need the South Bank, because the South Bank will do a lot of the engineering and supply work for the industry.
Yeah.
On the
for this type of industry, it's both sides of the river. I was in Barton last night, and they're only 15-20 minutes drive from the centre of Hull, so it's a great boost to that end of my constituency, and that trickles down through Grimsby and Cleethorpes.
But if it's to the benefit of ABP for their North Bank facilities that they have the South Bank facility, why would they be putting up resistance to the development of the Able Park on the South Bank?
Well, it is essentially a commercial dispute which Parliament is having to arbitrate. And what I hope, as Austin says, is that a compromise can be reached before we actually walk through the door of this parliamentary committee, so that all they've got to do is say, well, you've reached agreement, here's the rubber stamp, go and get on with it. And
we're putting faith in these wind farms, but the independent member of the European Parliament for Yorkshire and Humberside, Godfrey Bloom, suggests that wind power has no future. They're closing it down in Germany, he says.
Well, as long as Geoffrey Bloom is producing it, wind power has a big future. but he's wrong, of course.
He will be a guest here in a few weeks.
As on most issues, Geoffrey Bloom is wrong. If he's predicted it's got no future, I think it's got a long and prosperous future, and we should have more of it. But it is one of our big hopes for jobs and development in this part of the country. We are a natural place for supply work and for installation work for North Sea wind energy.
We're ideally
we want the development, the whole industry to come here. There are other suppliers and manufacturers besides Siemens, and there's also all the supply work that's got to go on. So we're working hard to get it.
But I stress again, there is a window of opportunity. It won't be open forevermore. We've got to hope that an agreement can be reached and Able can go through that window of opportunity. Let's get the benefits, because the other things are beginning to take over. There's talk of fracking and so on. The wind industry's got to move forward now to maximise their advantages.
That's right. Otherwise, it's a question of standing Geoffrey Bloom on a platform in the North Sea.
Well,
just inviting him to speak for a few hours.
We touched on Europe there. There has recently been the debates between Nigel Farage and Nick Clegg. Nigel Farage of UKIP, Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats. Neither of your parties chose to take part.
Thank heavens. Why should we wrestle in mud with those lunatics?
Martin, you're in coalition with Nick Clegg's party. Why did the Conservatives not want to have a dog in that fight?
This came about, as I understand it, by Nick Clegg sort of challenging Farage on his radio phone-in or something. They are the exact opposites. The Lib Dems are signed and sealed up to Europe, have always been so. Farage and UKIP, of course, are the absolute opposite.
Don't criticise them, Martin.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to criticise them.
Government.
I'm not criticising the Lib Dems. Actually, they've been good coalition partners on certainly on economic policy. They've stood by the agreement, but we will never agree on Europe. Austin and I happen to be opposed to our membership of the EU.
But Austin, you are both wanting to come out to the Better Off Out campaign, but you both have other members of your parties who are very keenly in
this debate. I think Clegg was talking a lot of rubbish about losing 3 million jobs. That is just nonsense and fear creation. So at the end of the day, I thought Farage won, but then I wouldn't I? I think both of them are essentially protest parties. It's just that the Liberals are kind of middle-class protest, and UKIP is more of a kind of proletarian, or a protest by people who've been left behind by the 21st century. And feel all the world is going wrong.
I mean, I'm more at ease with UKIP and Nigel Farage than I am in many respects with Nick Clegg for the very reasons that Austin articulates. But the reality is decisions over Europe are going to be made either by the Labour government or a Conservative government, or one of them as the lead partner in a coalition.
Well, there should be a referendum.
Oh, there's got to be a referendum. And only the Conservatives can deliver it, because Austin's party is against it. He's a lone voice within his party.
What
if there were a Labour government, there wouldn't be a referendum.
What Miliband has said is if there are changes in the Constitution towards ever closer union, we'll have a referendum.
But that's already the law. We've passed the Europe.
No, but that depends on the Tory government getting back in 2015, and they
won't.
No,
the Europe bill that we passed 3 years ago says that if there's if we cede any more power to Brussels, there has to be a referendum. Now, the politicians in power will no doubt try and wriggle around that. I made this point at the time. But the only way to absolutely be certain of a referendum is to have a Tory government next year.
I disagree with that. It's not true. This Parliament can't bind the next Parliament, and the Tories won't win in 2015. But I will admit that the Labour Party made a mistake in not for a referendum before. We said that a treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, was not a new constitution, and it patently is a new constitution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a mistake.
It's an own goal by Miliband, not slamming the door for a referendum.
An own goal, Austin?
There'll be a referendum, and I shall be supporting it.
International politics, bringing politics much closer home. On the same day as the European elections coming up, we have local elections. Your constituencies are both in northeast Lincolnshire. Is Chris Shaw's regime going to survive the debacle of the herringbone paving stones peeling off the ground that have cost £6 million and have been there only a matter of weeks?
Well, look, everybody's complains about local government, and it's forced to make cuts, 26% cut in what is allowed by government to spend. So there's bound to be an effect on the ground and anger. And always, when a government is in power, the local elections go against the government in power.
Well, my constituency also takes in 2 wards of North Lincolnshire, and I invite people to contrast Conservative North Links with Labour North East Links. Actually, there are no elections in the North Links this year.
So they can't contrast.
But they can compare the policies that are being delivered.
I'll have to stop you both there. Forgive me, Austin, I'm sorry. Sorry, Austin, go on.
Well, I think Chris Shaw has done a reasonable job in the circumstances, a good job in the circumstances, by not firing people and by keeping services going as well as possible. And that job of cuts is forced on him by the Conservative government.
At that, I must stop you both. Austin Mitchell, Martin Vickers, thank you both very much for joining us today. Hope to see you again in about a month's time. We're out of time now. Thanks to my guests. Please join me next time in coming weeks as the campaigns heat up for the local and European elections, and I'll be trying to analyse them. I hope you'll watch us then. Goodbye.